me about it. Come on, let's talk about it. Change up the things you see. Open your mind to possibilities. Find your power, passion, and your purpose. You know it's time for you to walk in greatness. Let's murder mediocrity. Slay your goals, live out your dreams. Right now. Inspirational perspective.
The thing that is in my space and has been in my space is this notion of ownership. So I'm gonna share for those of you who tuned in and you're like, you know, especially on Facebook where you see the topic is the 7 habits to set in 2023, which is an ode to it being the first day of the year. In terms of how we should contextually be thinking about it. And I talked about that before. I talked about that last week. I wanted to cover these 7 habits. But the thing that's in my spirit is ownership. Ownership and personal responsibility. Those are the 2 things that are just really deeply in my spirit. So I'm gonna get to the 7 habits, but I want to say this, just to kind of, you ever feel like it's a pressure cooker, man? It's inside me. I got to get it out. I want to say this. When you watch the news nowadays, you look at politics, you look at what's happening locally. Across the board, when you look at what's going on, the new phase that I see that seems to be kind of settling in as normal is this phase of victimization. Like, I am a victim. This phase of like something being like every group, almost every group has something that's being done to them, where there is a complaint about what you've done to me and how it's incapacitated me or affected me or is in some way impacting my mental health. Like, you say that and people are like, oh no, oh no, I did something to impact your mental health. And I want to be very clear. There are some egregious things that a person or a group can do to another person or group that impacts mental health. I'm not saying that's not it. But I do believe that we have come, that something has happened where there's a culture that's being created, where there is hypersensitivity. And many of us are operating in this semi-quasi state of victimization. These things have been done. And so as a result, I have lost my volition. What is volition? The ability to make a decision, to change, to employ my personal power. And it's scary to me because it seems to be insidious. And if those of you who are listening to me, if you begin to adopt or adapt this way of thinking, then what happens is you truly become subject to the winds and the tides of media and whatever other channel that you fall into. Like, you can just get pushed. And then the song you sing is a song of suffering. Oh, this happened, they did this to me or that. That's the song. So what's in my space is this concept of ownership and this concept of personal responsibility. I think most of us know that at this point, you can go into a grocery store and purchase something in that grocery store that has poison in it. Like it's in an edible food aisle, right? It's among food. It's on the shelf. It's displayed as food. It's called food. But this food or this so-called food has literal poison in it. Now, of course, it doesn't say that in the ingredients. When you turn it over, it doesn't say poison, but it might say some long chemical that you can't pronounce, right? That, you're too busy to go look up. But if, in fact, you were to look up all the ingredients on your diet soda, one of the things that you would see is an ingredient, I'm just using this as one of the examples, called aspartame, that is slowly poisoning your brain, that eventually leads to dementia and the loss of your memory. Now, can you imagine living a full life? Loved ones, children, grandchildren, and legacy. And if I day you knew, say you came to my home and you ate at least once or twice a week, and you found out that I was poisoning you in a way that would rob you of your memories, how would that make you feel?
Make me feel good at all.
Hey, turn on his mic, Justin. Yeah. I mean, how would that make you feel?
It wouldn't make me feel good at all.
Would you continue to come to my house and eat?
No.
No. Once you realize that in some way I was victimizing you, there's a choice you have to make. A choice of personal responsibility and ownership. Well, Linnell insists that I come to his house. I do work for him. And what am I going to do? Not eat the food? Right? Now, this is the way of the victim, by the way. Right? Where you continue to show up and you go into the struggle and you complain. Well, he's my boss. I don't have another job. If I don't eat what his wife cooks, even though I know it has poison in it, then what am I supposed to do? Or you can say, what nowadays, and this is a very simple example, you all. I really want us to see what's going on here. Or you can do what I'm suggesting is take full ownership and personal responsibility for your life and make a radical decision that maybe you shouldn't be working for me nor eating at my home anymore. All right, where am I going with this? At this point, we are so far into the information age. By the way, the information age, in terms of what it is pretty much at an end. Like, we have fully come into the age of robotics and AI at this point, which is a completely different conversation. But we are in a new era. So the information age has served its purpose. And in serving its purpose, it's still here, just like the Industrial Revolution and manufacturing of factories is still here. Maybe not in the United States, but they're still around, right? So is the information age. Most of us know that the food we eat isn't good for us. Most of us know that if you go into the grocery store and in that you shop without personally educating yourself, that you are bound to pick up poison. This is not a surprise. Most of us know it. My concern is, in that knowing it, how many of us are taking full personal responsibility and ownership in the evidence that we are being poisoned, that we're taking full and personal responsibility to ensure that I'm not being poisoned and that my family is not being poisoned. Here's what I mean by the idea of this wave of victimization. Well, now, what am I supposed to do? I'm so busy, I got so much going on. Then what do I feed my children? If I can't give them a Pop-Tart, which by the way is poison. Why is it poison in there? Well, because depending on the color that is in the dye on the frosting of the Pop-Tart, you could have red 40, blue dye. I forget the number with the blue dye. All these things of which are known to be poisons to the human body. But not just that, a Pop-Tart has more than that. Now, somebody right now is saying, wait, Pop-Tarts? Yes, Pop-Tarts. But again, we live in the age of information where I'm telling you all, it's 2023. If we don't get serious, about taking full ownership and personal responsibility for what it is that we're doing and everything around us, the consequences are going to be high. And in my mind, it's gotten so bad that for many of us, we'll feel the consequences within the decade, before 2030. Our parents, it may have taken longer to impact them, but we are surrounded. I mean, whether it's information, frequencies, vibrations, poisons, you name it, we are so surrounded by it. If we don't begin to really get diligent and take personal responsibility, this is why my heart is so heavy. This is one subject. This is just food. This is just food. I was in a barber shop yesterday, and my barber, he began asking me about my diet. And then he said, well, how did you make decisions on your diet? And I took him back to 2017. Many of you all know this story. And I took him back to 2017. And I told him, hey, I had horrible knee pain when I played basketball. I just wanted to eradicate the knee pain. And I told him how that journey of eradicating knee pain took me down a learning experience where I uncovered more than I expected to uncover. I thought I just had to give up red meat. After research, I gave up chicken, I gave up poultry, I gave up a lot of things. And then over time, I began to give up more. So he was like, so you eat shrimp and lobster and crab? And I'm like, I don't. And he was like, whoa, why not? I said, well, cholesterol, etc. It doesn't, my blood type, my body type, it doesn't process, right? It would lead to higher cholesterol, etc. And then I told him, I said, what's funny? I'm in barbershops, you have audiences too, right? I said, what's funny? I said, what I found is that after doing all of this research, that I now eat almost identical to, let's take bread and all the gluten, right? The flour, the sprouts. Like I eat identical to how we were instructed to eat in the Old Testament. Like almost outside of, but there's certain things I like, even that they would have ate that I don't eat because it's, in the 21st century it's contaminated. But I'm like, I basically eat like we were taught to eat in the Old Testament. And he was like, wow. He said, so are you one of those Hebrew Israelites, right? And I said, well, man, how long you been cutting my hair? Like, if that was the case, I think you would know. I said, but in many ways, and you guys heard me say this on the show, you have to remember that there is truth in everything, right? There's truth in everything. And by the way, no shade to my Hebrew Israelite brothers and sisters. Like, it's just not. We all have our beliefs and our belief systems, okay? Now, and I believe a lot of things that they believe happen to be true. It's that simple. Okay, now, I say all that because what dropped in my spirit is, for most of us, we have access to the truth. We have access to what it is that we should do and what we shouldn't do. We just don't. And I want to know why. Some time ago, let's stay in the realm of pillar number 1, health and well-being. Some time ago, I was watching The Walking Dead. You guys know the show, right? So I'm watching The Walking Dead, and it started off as fascinating, and it seems it's kind of like fictional, right? Zombies and things like that. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, before you know it, the zombies aren't the problem, right? It's the other human beings. And as the interactions between these human beings begin to grow more and more contentious, I started noticing that I had anxiety watching the show. Right? I started noticing that I had anxiety watching the show. Like it was sitting my spirit, man. And then afterwards, I started noticing that I had a more anxious way of being. Right? Like just around certain things, certain matters, certain human interactions. And I had to make the decision to cut off the source of the anxiety. Now, what was the source of the anxiety? Before I started watching The Walking Dead, by the way, I got to like season 8 and cut it off. I'm like, this is over. I don't know how it ended. It don't even matter. Because anything that would introduce anxiety in replacement for the peace I carry ain't worth it. The storyline ain't worth it. I'm sharing this because a lot of what we are dealing with as a community, we have introduced to ourselves. A lot of what we are battling mentally, we have introduced to ourselves. Here's the funny thing. When I turned off the input, and you guys know I talk about inputs, and in this case, I felt like, and this is what happens, right? This was maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. It's like, I'm a grown man. What is a show about zombies gonna do to me, right? This is how we think about it. What is a show about zombies gonna, like, come on, I know zombies ain't real. Like, let's see. I just want to be entertained. So I began watching the show. And then after watching the human interactions and some of the things that don't even seem to make sense to me, and this guy and how people get killed and die, it's like I noticed the anxiety, awareness. I'm pointing to something here. Like I noticed a shift in my way of being, right? Now, first, how do I notice a shift in my way of being? Well, because there is a place that I stand in my life where I intend to be rooted that I'm noticing is shifting. Like, wait a second, something is shifting me and shifting my way of being. Which, if I'm aware that something's shifting my way of being, is like, I gotta cut it off. I gotta cut it off. My fear. Now let me say this. The show was entertaining. And so that's the hook. And my fear is that some of what's being created and some of what we're indulging in, now I'm talking about mental health, that we are so given to the narrative and understanding the end of the story because as human beings, we are socially wired for stories, that we are putting off our own mental health, our own ways of being, and actually accepting new vibrations and frequencies into our life that will not take us where we intend to go. In fact, it's taking us further away. Just another concern. When we're talking about taking full ownership and personal responsibility for your life. Now, here's another way it could go. Why would they produce something like that? Why would they put something on TV that would make me anxious? That's the victim's way. Ownership is, look, you can air what you want to air, but after I notice that it has an impact on me, I have the volition to turn it off. Last night, I was having dinner with a group of people, and we got into the conversation of church hurt and church trauma. One of the people at the dinner asked me, Linnell, how did you overcome your church hurt and church trauma? And how is it that after what you've gone through, you have what seems to be such a solid sense of spirituality? Personal responsibility and ownership. I want you to hear me really well right now. If you are blaming your current lack, I'm jumping, but it's just, if you are blaming your current lack of spiritual connection on your interaction with another human being, I don't know when it was, childhood, parent, you name it. If you are blaming your lack of spiritual connection to your creator on another human being, that is what I'm talking about when I'm saying the era of victimization. You are allowing a human being to have the power to keep you spiritually disconnected, and you're operating as a victim to whatever it is that they've done without doing the work that is necessary to put yourself back on your spiritual path on this spiritual journey. It's their fault. That's victimization. Personal responsibility is it hurt and it disconnected me. And now I'm going to do everything I can, claw, climb, you name it, to put myself back in the place that I know I should be, even if I don't know what it feels like, looks like, or should be like. Personal responsibility and ownership. I just feel like whatever's happening in our culture, and I'm almost positive somebody's mad at me and saying, you don't understand my life. Now, here's the thing. One of the powerful breakthroughs that people experience in Ghana is in the dungeons. And I believe it's one of the most powerful breakthroughs that people have, because as an African American whose ancestors come from Africa, who went through the horrors and traumas of slavery, you get an upfront view of what true. I'm not saying people haven't been victimized, but I'm talking about victimization to the 10th degree. I mean, just horrible victimization, unimaginable victimization. And you see where our ancestors, even in that level of victimization, chose with volition to breathe when they had the option not to. A lot of folks didn't make it. A lot of people who would have been ancestors didn't make it because they gave up. The reason we are here is because our ancestors did not. So then when you begin to cast a comparison of where many of us are today in 2023 against the circumstances of our ancestors, and we can't seem to gain a thread of ownership or personal responsibility, now you understand why I'm so concerned. That was not the topic today. but it's just something that's been on my mind, something I'm really concerned about. In terms of this idea of personal responsibility, I was watching a replay of a Congress hearing, these C-SPAN hearings, right? Where they were talking about baby lotion as a product. As you can imagine, having a 7-month-old daughter, I'm like, oh, what's this? Baby lotion, right? And the question that was being posed is, if a particular baby lotion of any brand is known to have poisons and things that would negatively impact the child, would the FDA force the company to remove it from the shelf? And the expert's answer was no. There's nothing in legislation, nothing that requires or where the FDA can actually force them to remove this product that is known to harm people that's being sold to them from the shelves. And what I was sharing is that we are in an era where we have to be on guard and assume that you're always under attack. Like, you have to be suspicious. One of the products that my wife and I use with my daughter is called Honest. Right? We know that product. I'm still suspicious of Honest. Why you call yourself Honest? Let me turn this over and read what you put in the product. Because I understand that I cannot trust, even if you say you mean me good, I cannot trust that you actually will do good by me. One of the things that we must understand about the United States of America that we live in is that it's governed by money. The system that we are operating in is governed by money and profit. The only thing that matters is a profit at the end of the quarter. That's what matters. Whatever lies in the wake of having got that profit, for the most part, with most organizations, I say most organizations, does not matter. And I think we got to start asking, I'm about to get to these calls in a second. We got to start asking ourselves common sense questions. Let me give you another example. If I started a company and this was a so-called, let's say I started a so-called health company, okay? And I began providing, let's say, some kind of pill medicine to people, and I say it's going to help you. After a year or so in business, so let's say 2 years in business, I gain a profit of a few $1 billion. All right. Only for it to be found that the product that I was selling did not, in fact, help everyone. In fact, there is a large percentage of people who suffer dramatically as a result of taking my product. This group of people take my company to court. And in taking my company to court, they win. They win. And I am forced to pay a lawsuit. Now, mind you, I made a few $1 billion. So my lawsuit comes in at, let's say, $500 million. And I pay it. And I continue to do business. After you hear this, would you purchase my products? Would you take my product? Would you trust me? Let's see what they're saying on Facebook. Would you all trust me? Would you say, if I said, we didn't do adequate research, you all, and I am so very sorry. But matter of fact, this is how the companies do it. The person who's in charge doesn't even come out. They have a spokesperson. So what if I sent Ade out? Ade's like, you all know Linnell means the best for the you all in the community. And we were just as surprised as you all to find that our product hurt people. And, Ade's media trained. He takes all the questions, and he sews it up nicely. And then I come right back on the air and say, so I got 2.0 for you guys. And I'm going to sell it. Would you buy it? So why are you still messing with some of these organizations? Why you believe them? And I can't just call out the names, right? Because then, if I did it, you would be done with me. Why are we washing, rinsing, and repeating with organizations that have been known to do us harm? We got to wake up. Ownership, when you think about radical ownership means I own whatever's happening from the very beginning to the very end. At no point even if I have someone working for me or doing something, at no point do I allow what happens or what they do to be like, oh, well, Justin did that, right? Ide did that. Ownership has me get up on my vacations and actually turn on the show to make sure it's on. Not that I don't trust you, Justin, but ownership. You get where I'm going? I know we talked, we all text, but then, I'm like 7 o'clock. I'm like, is it playing? Ownership says I don't just give my responsibilities to someone else. And then if the show didn't play, Justin was supposed to play it. How was I supposed to know? I was on vacation, right? He should have had it. And this is, by the way, that's normal. If I said that, people be like, well, Linnell's right. He was on vacation. No, ownership says if I'm responsible, I'm responsible. Now, let's circle back around to what Mike said about health. Dr. Mason himself has come on the show, and then when you listen to him a couple of hours from now on WVON, he shared that doctors receive little to no education on nutrition. Your medical doctor, the reason they're an MD is because they have been indoctrinated in medicine. Here's what I'm just gonna have to be in trouble and make folks mad this morning. I'm tired of pausing. Here's what happens when you listen to a medical expert. You go in. This is how it went for me. Hey, Linnell, man, your cholesterol's higher than it should be. If it continues this way, next time you come in next year, we're gonna have to put you on, cholesterol medication. Like, oh, well, what's that gonna do? Oh, it has little to no side effects. And, but it'll get your cholesterol right. And ultimately, we want to do that because we don't want it to progress into some level of heart disease, etc. Okay. So I say, well, he said the medicine has little to no side effects. So I begin to take the medicine. Now, what I don't know is that the medicine has qualities that don't necessarily break down in my kidney and my liver because it's synthetic. It's synthetic, right? So now my liver is working harder than it should, and so is my kidney. And then, oh, by the way, as I do this, I don't change my diet, which means now not only am I taking cholesterol medication, but when I go back, he goes, Linnell, hey, man, so we did what we needed to do with your cholesterol, and that looks good. Good job taking the medication, but your blood pressure is too high. because, by the way, I didn't change my diet. So, your blood pressure being this high, Linnell, you can't have that. That opens you up to other things. And so, we got this medicine. It's pretty good. It's new. It's for high blood pressure. I'm gonna put you on this. Well, doc, what are the side effects? It's very little to no side effects. You can live. As long as you take it, it's going to help you, right? Because this is my MD, my medical expert. He or she knows how to give me medicines. So I start taking the high blood pressure medicine, right? I don't change anything. Now, if I continue to do that, my liver is under stress. My kidneys are beginning to break down, right? This is why in the Black community, you got all types of kidney dialysis. I mean, you ride through the South Side. I don't even want to call the name and give them any type of pub. When you ride through the South Side, you see a dialysis center over here. It's like churches. Dialysis over here, dialysis over there. Hey, I don't see this where I live. I see it in where in certain low income communities and everywhere. Everywhere. So what they don't tell me is if I continue to take these medicines, my kidneys are going to break down and that I will have to do dialysis. Oh, well, hey man, it could be worse because now I'm mad at my doctor. You didn't tell me that if I took these medications, it was going to break down my kidneys. By the way, if I say that, I can't prove that these medicines did that according to the research, blah, 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 blah. And then if I try to sue, most of these companies have some kind of indemnification umbrella. Well, I can't even get to them. I'm suing you for messing up my kidneys. Oh, no, you read the little note that we put into every pill you took. It says that, we're exonerated of anything that happens to you. So now I can't even sue. My kidneys messed up. But my doctor said, at least you're alive. You would be dead with heart disease if you hadn't taken it. But, since your kidneys messed up and this is going on, we do need to give you this new pill. On and on and on and on and on. Why? Because I trusted someone else with my most precious possession, my body. I never took full ownership. I never looked it up. I got, it was too much. And by the way, my favorite show was coming on. My wife, thank God for my wife and the gem that she is for our family and the role that she plays as a mother. Thank God for her. Because she breastfed Legend and she is currently breastfeeding Rain. Now I'm sharing this because just recently she was doing some work. As she's breastfeeding Rain, she's like, okay, I'm gonna get to the year mark. And I want to, just see if there's any formulas or things like that I could use to subsidize, with the breastfeeding. I came home from the office just this past week or so. She had this look on her face. I said, what's going on? She said, babe, I just got done researching formulas. Now, mind you, we talked about personal responsibility and complete ownership. Now, as the God ordained steward of these children, right? Not owner, right? But steward of these children, they are part of our responsibility. And so that responsibility we take ownership of. I want to be very clear with my words, right? We don't own the children, but we are responsible for them. And so we take ownership of the responsibility from A to Z. So she's doing research on the formulas. She said, I can't. There's only one. that's made in Australia that I can even begin to process giving to our daughter. When I tell you that we have got to be diligent, like you can't trust that because it says baby on it, that it's not going to do your child harm. And we think, oh, well, they won't hurt the kids. Really? Like, you, really? Like, I just don't trust that my child is safe just because it says baby formulated on it. You know, and by the way, when whatever happens that wasn't supposed to happen happens, they'll say, oh, well, you know, in our tests, only 0.5% or only 1% or 2% of the population struggle with that. Isn't that too high? Isn't that too high? Like, when did we get to a point where human health comes down to percentages? Like, no, isn't that too high? If it's going to have an adverse effect on anybody, and then of course they'll say, well, think about the lives that it saves. So, but what about the lives that it ruined? We gotta be diligent. And this is my wife's research. She's like, there is not one formula on the market that she was willing to introduce to our daughter or subsidize with her breastfeeding as a result of having done research. One formula on the market in the United States of America. I love you guys. I love our community. My work is to the community, for the community. And I don't know what else we only covered, let me give you the 4 pillars of life that we have in many ways created and we use as a framework in my coaching company. We also use it in Slay Your Goals. The first pillar is health and well-being. I went into personal responsibility simply around that. Let me tell you what health and well-being consists of. It consists of your physical health, your mental dexterity, which is your ability to learn, your ability to gain information and use it and apply it, and your emotional health. When I say health and well-being, those are the 3 things I'm referring to, okay? Then you have relationships and love. And this is the second pillar. And when you look at this particular pillar, the things that when I think about relationships and love, then of course your romantic life comes into picture if you have one, right? Not all of us are married or in relationship. So you may not have that component of relationships and love, but then you have your social life, which is a part of your relationship and love pillar. And then for those of us who are parents, you have parenting and how you steward your children. That is part of the pillar of relationships and love. The third pillar is work and money. When I'm having this conversation about personal responsibility and ownership, I'm pointing to these 4 pillars in every category, that lives within these pillars. Personal responsibility around my knowledge. Like if I didn't know that, that's not an excuse anymore. It's too much access. Emotional fitness. Do you know some of my sister was explaining to me how her emotional fitness had been completely hijacked by dairy. Her emotional fitness had been completely hijacked, and she took personal responsibility to get underneath it to the point where she's cut gluten and dairy out of her life and regained emotional control. And this is what I mean by being a victim. Like, oh, I just struggle with this and I don't know why I feel this. It's kind of like, well, why do I feel this way? I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to own my process, not leave it to somebody who is a quote unquote expert to say, ooh, I'm so sorry. Let me give you this though. Take this, it'll make you feel better. That's what I mean. Anyway, third pillar, work and money. Within that pillar, when we think about work and money, career, financial clarity. Think about that. I am crystal clear on where I stand financially. Most of us are like, I think I'll get by this week. You should know. You should know. Because something comes with that. And then your quality of life is part of work and money. Quality of life. How do we know? How do I want to live? What experiences do I want to have? And then the fourth pillar, and I want you to think of it as the first pillar and the fourth pillar as bookends that hold up pillar number 2 and 3. The fourth pillar is purpose and spirituality. What is your life's purpose? Are you living in alignment with your life's purpose? Are you spiritually connected? And then along with those, do you have the character traits that you desire to have? And are there other traits that you need to exonerate from your life? Full ownership. Let me tell you, there were character traits, there were traits in my character that I knew would not allow me to fully live my life's purpose and powerfully connect to the Creator. I had to go through the work. I had to go through the pain of eliminating those ways of being and those traits so I can step into new ways of being and adopt new character so I can be the man that I know Yah intends for me to be. Personal responsibility and ownership. Hey, my inspired peoples. Linnell Harris here, certified ontological coach and trainer. I'm so excited that you're watching the channel. By the way, did you know you can catch the show live at 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. every Sunday morning? You can. All you have to do is go to my Facebook stream, Coach Linnell Harris, catch the stream live, or you can listen to the radio show via iHeart at WVON 1690 AM. But since you're here, if you love the content, I ask that you share it, like this particular video, and subscribe to the channel. I hope you're having a great day.